ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වරට SLT 4G වෙතින් දැන් Pure TV නරඹන්න. ඉදිරියටම ගෙන යන SLT 4G.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, too many cooks. Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera blames these attacks on too many leaders lacking responsibility. Taking in the view, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa inspects Central Expressway after meandering construction allegations. Clean sweep. Attorney General tells prison officials to weed out the bad seeds. This Friday, the 19th of June, 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
Nava Sunlight Sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamike Kanaika. Let's start with your local stories. Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera believes that there were too many leaders in the country at the time of the Easter Sunday attacks of last year, but they were not the kind who take responsibility. The Thera was giving evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the attacks. He went on to criticise the leadership which prevailed at the country's helm as well as at the police over inaction, saying that attacks similar to that of Easter Sunday happen when appropriate leaders are lacking.
Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasara Thera yet again gave evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter Sunday terror attacks yesterday. He told the Commission that around 60% of sites with archaeological value in the Eastern Province have been destroyed as part of the workings of certain factions, and only 1,089 sites remain. Meanwhile, the video recorded by Zaran Hashim and other bombers within the Span Tower residential complex in Mount Lavinia was played before the Commission. The Commission asked the witnesses' stance on the terrorist use of the term demon named Gnanasara twice in describing the reasons behind the attacks. The Thera said that it is Wahhabism. It is prohibited for us to question their lives or teachings. We cannot speak about it. If we do, we are demons. Zaran and others trained in these extremist ideologies. The Commission asked the witness who is responsible for failing to prevent the attacks when there were pre-warnings. The Thera's response was that both a lack of leaders and too many leaders resulted in disaster. He added that there were too many leaders in the country at the time of the attacks, and that although they point fingers at each other, none have taken responsibility. The Thera went on to say that such things happen when appropriate leaders are lacking, noting that the actions of former President, the former PM and the former IGP as well as others continue to be limited to making various statements. The Commission then asked the witness as to what national danger awaits. The Thera responded saying that even if Prince Liasen was to appear tomorrow, this cannot be stopped. He added that this has to be suffered as long as extremist ideologies are taught, and like a cancer, it can only be controlled with the sheer vigilance of the intelligence and security units. The Commission meanwhile ordered the National Authority for the Protection of Victims of Crime and Witnesses to provide Venerable Gnanasara Thera with security, since giving testimony over the attacks may carry a threat to his life. In the meantime, police media spokesman SSP Jalya Senaratne revealed that Easter attack investigations have uncovered direct links between the brother of former Minister Richard Bathiudeen, Riyaj Bathiudeen, and the Easter attackers. SSP Senaratne added that Riyaj Bathiudeen had aided and abetted in transporting the bombers, as well as provided financial assistance in connection with the attacks.
අපි ඔව අත්අඩංගුවට අරගත්තේ මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් විමර්ශන කරගෙන යද්දී අපිට අනාවරණය වුණා ඍජුවම සම්බන්ධතාව පවත්වලා තියෙනවා මේ බෝම්බ කරුවන් සමග ඒ වගේම බෝම්බ කරුවන් ප්‍රවාහනය කිරීම සඳහා යම්කිසි ආකාරයක ආධාර අනුබල දීලා තියෙනවා ඒත් එක්කම අපිට තවතොරතුරු අනාවරණය වෙලා තියෙනවා ප්‍රහාරයන් සඳහා සැලසුම් කිරීමේදී ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය මුල්‍ය ජාලය සඳහා යම් දායකත්වයන් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා කියලා ඒ පිළිබඳව දැනට අපි විමර්ශන කරගෙන යනවා තව දින කිහිපයක් ඇතුළතදී අපිට පුළුවන් ඒ විමර්ශන ඉවර කරන්න.
Meanwhile, former Minister Richard Bathiudeen arrived at the Presidential Commission this morning to record a statement with the Commission's investigative unit.
Now, Sri Lanka's COVID-19 recovery rate is on the up and up, with the latest coming in at 74.26%. marking the highest recovery rate reported since the coronavirus first broke out in the island. With no cases of community transmission confirmed for over a month and a half, the government took measures to relax various restrictions put in place to curb the spread of the virus step by step. The latest is the reopening of cinema halls from the 27th.
Sri Lanka recorded its highest COVID-19 recovery rate today as the number surged to 74.26%, with the total number of COVID-19 recoveries now increased to 1,446. As things stand, the overall number of active COVID-19 cases in the country remains at 491. Meanwhile, all 23 patients that tested positive for the virus yesterday have been identified as Sri Lankan returnees from overseas. Among them are 19 returnees from Dubai, 2 from Kuwait, and the remaining 2 are returnees from London and Russia. In the meantime, a total of 901 naval personnel have been diagnosed with the coronavirus in the island to date. From that figure, 756 naval personnel have recovered from COVID-19, while 145 more are currently receiving treatment. In other developments, Sri Lanka's repatriation program continues to be in full swing, with 99 Sri Lankans being repatriated from Australia yesterday. Meanwhile, 58 Indian Navy sailors arrived in the country yesterday as part of a crew change for an Indian vessel that has been docked at the Colombo harbour. The Indian Navy sailors were subjected to mandatory PCR tests and were sent for quarantine until the results of the PCR tests are released. In a separate development, an Indian sailor who had travelled to Qatar from Sri Lanka was sent back to the island this morning after he tested positive for the virus. The sailor in question was among 69 other Indian sailors who had entered the country on the 17th of this month from India. 54 of them are crew of a ship anchored at the Colombo harbour. The remaining 15 Indian sailors had travelled to Doha in Qatar. After they landed in Doha and underwent PCR tests, the Indian national was sent back to Sri Lanka aboard the same flight that took him to Qatar after he tested positive for the virus. According to international aviation law, such questionable passengers must be diverted to the airport in which they arrived. However, due to the absence of the Indigo flight that the Indian sailor in question had arrived on, officials took measures to admit the sailor to the infectious diseases hospital for treatment. In the meantime, the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Cultural and Religious Affairs that all cinema halls will be permitted to resume screenings from the 27th of this month. Secretary to the Ministry, MKB Harishchandra, said that screenings will have to be done while adhering to the prescribed health guidelines.
කොරෝනා වෛරසය පැතිරීම වළක්වන්න සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න.
Now, a delegation of European Union ambassadors met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, with the talks mainly being centred on rebuilding the economy in the post-COVID-19 era. During the audience, the head of state had renewed his calls for a debt moratorium, which would ease the pressure on the island during these trying times. Meanwhile, China has also commended Sri Lanka's successful handling of the COVID-19 pandemic.
A Chinese delegation, including acting ambassador Hu Wei, met President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the presidential secretariat yesterday, bearing a letter from Chinese President Xi Jinping, wishing President Gotabaya for his upcoming birthday, which falls tomorrow. The Chinese delegation also conveyed President Xi's deep appreciation of Sri Lanka's successful efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The delegation noted that both Sri Lanka and China followed similar tracking systems to identify potential COVID-19 patients, and that both countries were able to successfully tackle the crisis because of the dedicated efforts of the respective security forces and intelligence officials. During the talks, the main focus had also been on the tea auction and how best to promote Sri Lankan tea, renowned as the world's best in China, and Chinese investments in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, President Gotabaya also met with EU ambassadors at the presidential secretariat yesterday, with discussions centered on rebuilding the economy after passing the COVID-19 crisis. The head of state has told ambassadors that the next concern before the country is reviving the economy, while noting that the current growth rate is very low and the national debt is high. The president had expressed his interest in developing domestic industries as well. While noting that most food items can be produced locally, the president stressed the need for Sri Lanka to modernize this sector, with canning and dry fresh produce also given attention. During the audience with EU ambassadors, President Gotabaya also stated that the island would benefit from a debt moratorium. He also emphasized that taking further loans is not an option and that Sri Lanka needs new investments instead of further debt. The president directed the EU delegation's attention to projects such as renewable energy using solar and wind. He also expressed his interest in focusing on an IT-based education system so that the youth are more exposed to new technologies. The EU delegation, meanwhile, had responded positively to President Gotabaya and discussed at length a number of ways their respective countries may be able to engage with Sri Lanka in these areas.
In the meantime, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa hosted a meeting of the Buddhist Advisory Council yesterday, where he outlined his plans to formulate a public consensus-based national education policy that will survive changing education ministers and changes in governments as well. The president told the gathered clergy that 2 presidential task forces are currently in the process of formulating such a policy. The Buddhist Advisory Council met for the 3rd time under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. The meeting was attended by members of the Buddhist Advisory Council, the chief prelates of the 3 main Buddhist sects, and other officials.
මම ජනාධිපතිවරයා වෙන්න කලිනුත් වියත්මග ඔස්සේ ද්වත් සභාවක් හරහා මේ අධ්‍යාපනය පිළිබඳ කෙසේ කර යුතුද කියන විවිධ මතධාරණ අය වෙලා සාකච්ඡා කරා. ජනාධිපතිවරයාට පසුව මම ජනාධිපති කාර්ය සාධක බලකායන් දෙකක් පත් කළා තිබෙනවා ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් සකස් කිරීම සඳහා. කමිටු දෙක මම විවිධ අවස්ථාවන්හිදී දැනටමත් සාකච්ඡා කරා යත් සමග මේ සකස් කරන ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්තිය ඇමතිවරු මාරු වෙනකොටත් ආණ්ඩු මාරු වෙනකොටත් වෙනස් කරන්නේ නැතුව සෑම දෙයක්ම පිළිගත්ත ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් හැටියට පවතින්නට මේක සාකච්ඡාවට භාජනය කරන්න කියලා මම ඒකලකින් ඉල්ලා සිටියා.
ජනාධිපතිතුමනි අර පාසල් අධ්‍යාපනයේ ජාතික අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් තාම නැහැ. ඉතින් මම හිතන්නේ ඔබතුමාගේ කාල පරිච්ඡේදයේදීවත් කිසිම ආණ්ඩුවකට වෙනස් කරන්න බැරි විදිහකට ජාතික අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් හදන්න පුළුවන් නම් අනාගතයට විශාල මෙහෙවරක් කරන කාර්යභාරයක් වෙනවා.
Moving on with other stories, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa inspected the progress of the Central Expressway's construction work today at the section stretching from Meerigama to Kurunegala. During a meeting that was held after the inspection, it was revealed that the project had come to a standstill since the delay in construction work of Section C of the stretch, which had been undertaken by a company owned by a former minister. It also came to light that contracts had been given without proper acquisition of land. However, the project director expressed optimism over finishing it soon.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa engaged in a visit to inspect the construction work of the Central Expressway that connects Meerigama to Kurunegala today. His visit comes on the heels of various complaints being received, alleging that the construction work is not being carried out properly as it should. His first point of inspection was the construction site near the Mahoya Bridge in Meerigama. Minister of Highways Johnston Fernando, former parliamentarian Shanta Bandara, engineers of the project and representatives from contract companies were also present. Later, the Prime Minister visited the construction site at Rila Ulla in Meerigama, where he then held a progress review meeting at the main operations centre at the ICC construction company. During the meeting, it was revealed a company that belonged to a former minister was in charge of the construction of the Section C of the Meerigama to Kurunegala stretch of the Central Expressway, and that the construction work had been delayed. Project Director M.A.K. Kehel stated that one of the main reasons for the delay was giving away contracts without proper land acquisition. The contract period for the construction of the second phase of the Central Expressway, with 4 lanes and 6 interchange points, is 30 months. The stretch from Meerigama to Kurunegala covers a distance of 40 kilometres and 137.3 billion rupees has been spent for this purpose.
තමාර සමාගම් වහිලා ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා මොකද යාන්ඩුවෙන් මිනිසුන් බක්බලොත් කරලා සල්ලි දෙන්නේ නැතුව මේ සල්ලි අපි දුන්න ගමන් ඒ කට්ටිය වැඩ පටන් අරගනි මම හිතන්නේ උගක් මේ ඉන්න අය මේක මම මුල් ගාලා දීුවේ මේ ආරම්භ කරේ මේ ඔක්කොම මොකද ඒතකොට ආණ්ඩුව පෙරළුණා නැත්තම් මෙලාට ඉවර කරලා දෙනවා අපේ ආණ්ඩුවත් පුරුණා මෙලාට ඉවරයි. The Prime Minister then visited the residence of UPFA's Kurunegala district candidate Shanta Bandara in Alawa and addressed a gathering there. අපි දන්නවා ජනාධිපතිවරයා උදේ පටන් ගත්තම රෑ 11 වෙනකම් ඔහු මේ රටේ සංවර්ධනය පිළිබඳව කටයුතු කරනවා. මට කියලා තියෙන්නේ මහින්ද අයියා මේ දේශපාලනය කරන්න මම රට හදන්නම් කියලා. වැඩ කරන්න. මම හිතුවා ඒක ලීසි කියලා මට. අපිට විහිළු සපයන්න පුළුවන්. එදා ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයා විහිළු කරා වගේ අද උදේ පාන්දර ටීවී එක දැක්කම එතුමා එවැනිම කතාවක් කරා රටේ ප්‍රශ්න හඳුනගෙන රටේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳුම් වැඩ කරන ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවක් ශක්තිමත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවක් ලබා දීම මේ යුතුයකමක් වශයෙන් මම දන්නවා.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira adopted a no-nonsense approach when delivering his address after engaging in an observational tour at the Colombo remand prison. His message was simple. Oliveira called on prison officials to identify corrupt officials who aid and abet the criminal activities of inmates, saying that he will do the rest.
Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira made his maiden observational tour at the Colombo remand prison today. Following the tour, the Attorney General had this to say to all superintendents of prisons who were gathered there.
අපි යථාර්ථයට මුහුණ දෙමු. කනගාටුයි කියන්නේ. මේකේ ඉන්නවා දූෂිත නිලධාරීන් පිරිසක්. එතකොට මේ බන්ධනාගාර දැන් අපරාධකරුවන්ගේ ක්‍රීඩා පිටි. අපරාධ සිදු කිරීම සඳහා අභ්‍යාස විද්‍යාල බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙන බන්ධනාගාරය. අල්ලස දූෂණයට නිලධාරීන් අබ්බැහිලා ඉන්නේ මේ. ප්‍රබල අපරාධ සංවිධානය වෙන්නේ මේක ඇතුලේ. පාතාල කල්ලි. එළිය කොටසක් ඉන්නවා ඇතුලේ කොටසක් ඉන්නවා. ඒ දෙකොල්ල සම්බන්ධ වෙනවා. නිලධාරීන් රැඳවියන් ආරක්ෂා කරන රැඳවියන් නිලධාරීන් ආරක්ෂා කරනවා. මෙතන අන්තර් සහජීවනයක් තියෙන. රටේ නීතිය සහ සාමයට තර්ජනයක්. මහජන ආරක්ෂාවට තර්ජනයක්. ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට තර්ජනයක්. මේවා හැදෙන්නේ නැත්නම් රට හදන්න බෑ. මේ බන්ධනාගාරය හදන්න බෑ. දූෂිත නිලධාරීන් රජ කරනකොට පිට ජාවාරම් මහා අපරාධ සිදු කරන්න මෙහෙන් කුමන්ත්‍රණය කරනවා. නිලධාරීන් ඒවට අනුබල දෙන්න. තමුන් වහන්සේලා මේ නායකයාට සම්පූර්ණ සහයෝගය දෙන්න මේක හදන්න රට හදන්න. තමුන් වහන්සේලා දරුවන් ගැන කල්පනා කරන්න. බලය අතට ආපුවාම ඒක හරි විදිහට පාවිච්චි කරන්න. එච්චරයි මං කියන්නේ. තමුන් වහන්සේට කිසි දෙයක් ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ අන්තිමට විශ්‍රාම යනකොට. හාන්සි පුටුවක වාඩි වෙලා ඉන්නකොට මේව මතක් වෙයි. මට අවස්ථාව ලැබුණා මම මොකද්ද කරේ? මම මෙතනට ආවේ අපරාධකරුවන් වැරදිකරුවන්ට පණිවිඩයක් දෙන්න. නිලධාරීන් හෝ වේවා රැඳවියන් හෝ වේවා. මට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මම තදින් නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. රජය දැන් නවීන තාක්ෂණයක් ලබා දෙන්න කටයුතු කරනවා. එතකොට බුද්ධි අංශයක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ බන්ධනාගාරයට. ඇතුලේ. එතකොට බුද්ධි අංශයත් එක්ක යනවා ආවේශන අංශය. ඊළඟට සෝදිසි කිරීම සර්ච්. මොකද මෙතන ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නය සෙල් දුරකථන භාවිතා කරලා තමයි මේ අපරාධකරුවන් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ. මම ලෑස්ති සම්පූර්ණ කැපවීමෙන් තමුන් වහන්සේලාට අවංක කාර්යක්ෂම නිලධාරීන් වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී සිටිනවා. හරි දේ කරන්න බය වෙන්න එපා. නිලධාරීන් පුනරුත්ථාපනය වෙන්න ඕනේ මෙතන. ඔක්කොටම ඉස්සෙල්ලා. පාතාලයේ මේකට එනකොට තව පිරිසක් එකතු වෙනවා. මම හිතන්නේ ඇතුලේ පාතාලය පිට පාතාලයට වඩා ප්‍රබලයි. මට දූෂිත පිරිස හඳුනාගෙන දෙන්න. ඉතුරු වැඩ ටික මම කරන්නේ. තොරතුරු සපයන්නන් ආරක්ෂා කිරීමට හරි ක්‍රමවේදයක් සකස් කර ගන්න ඕනේ. මොකද රැඳවියෙක් ඇවිල්ලා තොරතුරක් දුන්නොත් ඒ මිනිස්සයා ඊළඟ දවසේ මරුන් ගන්න පුළුවන් මෙතන. මොකද ඒ රහසිගතභාවය නැහැ මෙතන. රහසිගතභාවය. තොරතුරු කරුවන් ඇති කරන්න.
Meanwhile, Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne cautioned prison officials to refrain from getting involved in corruption and from supporting the convicted underworld criminals in the prisons, as law enforcement authorities had already commenced investigations on such officers. Addressing top officials of the prisons department in Colombo yesterday, the Defence Secretary urged the prisons officials to render their services according to their conscience to make a corruption-free prison system without getting caught to the underworld criminals. He said although the department is functioning under the Justice Ministry, he has a right to get involved in issues related to the department, as over 27,000 prisoners in the island-wide prisons were apprehended by the officers who were attached to the Defence Ministry.
Now, following several gangland-related incidents reported in just over the past month, the police special task force has been given the job of reining in the lawlessness while the country enjoys a tentative respite from the coronavirus. As a result, several arrests have been made, including of a suspect who held a bank account containing a staggering 490 million rupees of heroin kingpin Kuduanju's drug profits.
CCTV footage has been released of an assault that was carried out by a group of assailants on an individual in the Wanathamulla area of Boralla on the 12th of this month. The victim, who sustained serious injuries, is currently being treated at the intensive care unit of the Colombo National Hospital. According to the victim's wife, the assault was carried out by a drug gang that operates in the area. She also claimed that the attack was carried out in retaliation to a police complaint made by the victim against the gang's drug racket in the neighborhood. Further accusations are also being levelled that although a complaint had been lodged at the Boralla police station, the situation had worsened as a result of a lack of action taken by its minor complaints unit during their investigations. Meanwhile, the Police Special Task Force Intelligence Division apprehended a wanted underworld figure last evening in the Magul Pokana area of Ragama. The suspect, identified as SABEETHA Dinesh Kumara, alias SABEETHA, was in possession of a live hand grenade, a dagger, Kerala cannabis, along with the motorcycle as well at the time. The suspect had an outstanding arrest warrant issued by the Gampa magistrate in connection with a murder that took place in December 2016 in Ragama. Further, the STF revealed that the suspect's arrest was also sought by the Valisara magistrate for an incident that took place in November of last year, where he is accused of firing a pistol in the air and issuing death threats in public. In addition, he was also wanted by the Mahabaghi police for a 50,000 rupee kidnapping and ransom that was carried out a few days after the shooting incident. The special task force added that the suspect was also wanted for a burglary of valuables worth almost 200,000 rupees. In other news, the first suspect arrested for the stabbing attack on the father of underworld figure Kanjipani Imran has been remanded till the 2nd of July. The Hartstoff Magistrates Court has also allowed the police to detain the other 3 suspects for questioning for a period of 24 hours. Meanwhile, the last suspect wanted for the attack, 19-year-old Ronald Silva, alias Rogan Shan, was arrested at an apartment complex in Mattakulia by the Maligawatha police today. In another development, following revelations that underworld drug racketeer Kudu Anju had been maintaining a bank account in which 490 million rupees of his drug profits had been stored, the Western Province South Crimes Division arrested the account holder. The 34-year-old suspect, a resident of Buttala and Piliandala, was produced before the Mount Avenue Magistrates Court, where a 7-day detention order was handed down. Meanwhile, a special unit of the Mount Avenue Police took into custody a stock of locally manufactured T-56 cartridges, a plastic pistol, live 9mm and T-56 ammunition, and several T-56 shell casings buried at the residence of Lakshitage Indibadda, a suspect in the shooting of the Ratmalana restaurant. Police revealed that the suspect's mother and another individual have been taken into custody in this regard.
Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the Asian Development Bank has predicted dire growth levels for the Asian region, forecast at 0.1% this year, attributed mainly to the effect of lockdowns on economic activity and external demand. But 2021 growth is expected to rise to 6.2%. However, GDP levels for the year may remain below pre-crisis levels.
The Asian Development Bank forecasts that developing Asia will barely grow this year as coronavirus containment measures continue to hamper economic activity and weaken external demand. The ADB forecasts growth of 0.1% for the region in 2020, which is down from the 2.2% forecast in April and would be the slowest growth for the region since 1961. Growth in 2021 is expected to rise to 6.2% as forecast in April. However, gross domestic product levels in 2021 will remain below what has been envisioned and below pre-crisis trends. ADB chief economist Yasuyuki Sawada said that economies in Asia and the Pacific will continue to feel the blow of the COVID-19 pandemic this year, even as lockdowns are slowly eased and select economic activities restart in a new normal scenario. He added that while they expect a higher growth outlook for the region in 2021, this would be mainly due to weak numbers this year and will not be a V-shaped recovery. The bank has urged governments to undertake policy measures to reduce the negative impact of COVID-19 and ensure that no further waves of outbreaks occur. East Asia is forecast to grow 1.3% in 2020, the only sub-region to experience growth this year, while growth in 2021 will recover to 6.8%.
Now to bring you a market update, shares closed higher for a 4th straight session today, driven by gains in tobacco and beverage stocks. The all-share price index rose 0.27% to 4,990.42, its highest close since mid-March, with the index ending the week with a gain of 1.5%, with the S&P SL20 gaining 4.9%. Ceylon Tobacco Company plc drove the gains, rising 2.1%, while beverage maker Ceylon Cold Stores plc jumped 3.7%. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading about 375.3 million rupees worth of shares. Now here's a brief report on today's market performance.
During the week, the ASPI gained 1.5%, mainly due to price gains in counters such as Dialog Axiata, Sampath Bank and Ceylon Tobacco Company. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 increased by 4.9%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 1.4 billion rupees. Banking sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in diversified financial sector. Furthermore, the foreign participation remained active during the week, with foreigners closing as net sellers, where foreign sellings accounted for 47% of the total weekly turnover. A net foreign outflow of 2.64 billion rupees was recorded for the week. This resulted in the year-to-date net foreign outflow to increase to 18.22 billion rupees. Out of the weekly turnover, crossings accounted for 22%, which was a lower proportion than last week.
In the currency market, rupee opened steady at 186 rupees and 60 to 65 cents to the US dollar today, while bond yields continue to fall drastically. The rupee closed at 186 rupees and 60 to 75 cents against the greenback yesterday. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Now, despite the United States counting over 2.2 million infections and more than 120,000 deaths, New York plans to reopen on Monday under Phase 2 following improvement in its numbers. In the meantime, the government of the United Kingdom has resolved to use Apple and Google technologies for its test and trace applications after its homegrown system was found to be incompatible on Apple's iPhone.
The United States currently accounts for a majority of the world's COVID-19 infections and fatalities, recording over 2.2 million cases of the virus and over 120,000 deaths. In this backdrop, Mayor of New York Bill de Blasio said New York City will begin Phase 2 of reopening on Monday, citing continued improvements in coronavirus data. Meanwhile, the government of the United Kingdom said that it will switch to Apple and Google technology for its COVID-19 test and trace app, negating its homegrown system, which was not working well enough on Apple's iPhone. A smartphone app developed by the National Health Service was initially expected to be rolled out nationwide in May, but did not materialize. Meanwhile, China's capital has mandated coronavirus tests for hundreds of thousands of people as it widens measures against a new outbreak of the disease that has sent anxious residents flooding to clinics for voluntary tests. A municipal council official said that Beijing reported 25 new confirmed domestically transmitted COVID-19 cases yesterday, with 21 confirmed to be related to a wholesale market in the southern district of Fengtai.
Now, Ian Holm, the award-winning actor who starred in the film Lord of the Rings as Bilbo Baggins, has passed away in London. His agent said to media that he died peacefully in hospital with his family and carer, adding that his illness was Parkinson's-related. Holm began his career on stage working as a part of the Royal Shakespeare Company and gained international exposure when he was cast as Android Ash in the film Alien. His role as an athletic coach in Chariots of Fire won him a BAFTA and an Oscar nod for Best Supporting Actor, while he played Bilbo Baggins in 2 of the Lord of the Rings films, a role he reprised in the recent The Hobbit film series. Holm was 88 years of age at the time of his passing. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.